The first tow truck left before sunrise. The second stayed nearly 3 hours. The third brought a bigger rig and 2 extra men. By noon, all 3 had given the same answer. That truck isn't coming out. The 80,000-pound grain semi sat buried almost to its axles in a flooded creek crossing outside Mason City, Iowa, in the spring of 1998. Its trailer was loaded with corn bound for an ethanol plant, and every minute it remained stuck cost somebody money. A crowd had gathered along the gravel road. Farmers always stop when something unusual happens. Some leaned against pickups. Others stood with hands in their pockets. Everyone had an opinion. Nobody had a solution. The trucking company owner paced beside the creek, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the cool April wind. You telling me 3 towing companies can't move 1 truck? The driver shook his head. Not from where she's sitting. Ground's too soft. Every pull just sinks it deeper. The semi had tried crossing after 2 days of heavy rain. The creek wasn't deep, but the roadbed beneath had turned into soup. One wrong angle and the entire rig slid sideways into the mud. The rear trailer wheels disappeared first. Then the tractor settled. Now it looked like the earth was slowly swallowing it whole. The trucking company owner stared at the stuck rig and muttered words that weren't fit for church. That was when somebody noticed an old man standing near the fence line. Isn't that Earl Jensen? Several heads turned. It was. Earl was 78 years old and had farmed the same ground since Harry Truman was president. His overalls were faded. His boots were cracked. His cap looked older than some of the people standing nearby. He watched quietly for a moment before speaking. What's the hurry? The truck owner laughed. The hurry is every hour this thing sits here costs me money. Earl nodded slowly. Then he asked a question nobody expected. You boys got chains? The crowd chuckled. One young mechanic actually laughed out loud. Chains ain't the problem, Earl. Weight is. The old farmer didn't answer. He simply looked toward his farmstead a half-mile away. Then he turned and started walking. Where's he going? Someone asked. Nobody knew. An hour later they found out. The sound arrived before the machine did. A slow, steady pop-pop-pop echoed across the fields. Heads turned. Several men smiled. Others looked confused. Then the tractor appeared. It was a 1948 Farmall M. The red paint had faded decades earlier. The steel showed rust. The seat looked patched together with pure stubbornness. Yet the tractor moved with purpose. Earl drove it down the road as calmly as if he were heading to check cattle. The crowd couldn't believe it. The trucking company owner walked over. Earl, no offense, but 3 wreckers couldn't move that truck. The old farmer shut off the engine. I'm not trying to move the truck. The owner blinked. Then what are you doing? Earl pointed toward the muddy bank. I'm fixing the ground. The crowd exchanged puzzled looks. Then Earl began giving orders. Need 6 tractors. Nobody moved. He pointed again. Need them now. There was something about his voice. Maybe it was 80 years of experience. Maybe it was confidence. Whatever it was, farmers listened. Within 30 minutes 6 tractors appeared from neighboring farms. A John Deere 4440. An Oliver 1850. A Massey Ferguson 1105. 2 Case IH tractors. And Earl's ancient Farmall. Then another problem surfaced. The trucking company's insurance representative arrived. He stepped from his sedan wearing polished shoes that immediately sank into the mud. What exactly is happening here? Nobody answered. Because nobody really knew. Earl simply kept working. He directed tractors to drag old fence posts, railroad ties, and several wagon loads of crushed limestone toward the creek crossing. Hour after hour they built a temporary roadway. The insurance man shook his head. This is ridiculous. A nearby farmer smiled. Maybe. But let's see. By sunset, the crossing looked completely different. The mud remained underneath. But now a thick platform of stone, timber, and packed soil stretched beneath the trapped semi. Everyone expected the recovery to happen the next morning. Then another setback arrived. Thunderstorms. Heavy rain hammered the area overnight. By dawn, many feared all the work had been wasted. The trucking owner drove out before sunrise. His heart sank. Water covered parts of the crossing again. The crowd that returned later that morning expected Earl to finally admit defeat. Instead, the old farmer climbed off his Farmall and said only 3 words. "Let's finish it." The tractors returned. More stone arrived. More timber. More sweat. By afternoon, the temporary roadway was stronger than before. Then Earl revealed the second part of his plan. Instead of one giant pull, he arranged the tractors in stages. Each tractor would help transfer force gradually while reducing wheel spin. The younger mechanics looked skeptical. The insurance representative openly laughed. "This isn't 1950. Earl smiled. "No. But physics still works." At 3 o'clock the chains tightened. The crowd fell silent. The first tractor eased forward. Then the second. Then the third. Metal groaned. Mud sucked. The semi shuddered. Nothing happened. For a moment it seemed the critics were right. Then a trailer wheel moved. Just an inch. But everyone saw it. "Keep going," Earl shouted. The tractors pulled again. Another inch. Then 6. Then a foot. Suddenly the trailer climbed onto the reinforced roadway. Cheers erupted. The driver couldn't believe it. The trucking owner removed his hat. The insurance man stopped laughing. The operation continued for another 20 minutes. Slowly. Carefully. Steadily. Until the entire 80,000-pound rig rolled free. The crowd exploded. Men slapped each other on the back. Someone actually whistled. A few kids ran toward the truck like it had won a championship. The driver climbed down and stared at the old farmer. "How'd you know it'd work?" Earl looked at the muddy crossing. "Because I wasn't trying to beat the mud." The driver waited. Earl continued. "I was trying to understand it." That answer spread through town faster than any newspaper. For weeks people talked about the recovery. Some claimed it was luck. Others called it genius. But the farmers who were there knew the truth. Earl hadn't done anything magical. He had simply spent a lifetime solving problems nobody else wanted. The real surprise came a month later. The trucking company owner returned to Earl's farm. He brought an envelope. Inside was a check. A large one. Earl handed it back. The owner frowned. "You earned it." Earl shook his head. "Pay the neighbors who showed up." The owner insisted. Earl refused. Finally, he accepted only enough money to buy parts for the old Farmall. Nothing more. Years passed. Corn prices rose and fell. New tractors arrived with computers and GPS. Land values climbed higher than anyone imagined. Some farms disappeared. Others expanded. But people around Mason City never forgot that spring afternoon. When Earl passed away in 2007, the church overflowed with mourners. Farmers filled every pew. Truckers stood along the walls. Even the insurance representative attended. After the service, many drove past Earl's farm one last time. The old 1948 Farmall still sat in the machine shed doorway. Quiet. Weathered. Unremarkable to anyone who didn't know its story. But those who had stood beside that creek remembered something important. Machines matter. Money matters. Experience matters. Yet none of those things matter as much as a person willing to stay calm when everyone else has given up. Because sometimes the difference between failure and success isn't horsepower. Its wisdom earned one season at a time, passed from one generation to the next like good farmland itself.